About the bill. The bill would provide $850,000 from the general fund for assessment and analysis activities, giving us the information that we need to get the project started. And also, $6.5 million would be appropriated from the sale of general obligation bonds that would provide for the initial technical activities necessary to develop the project and get it going. The bill also directs the Minnesota Department of Transportation to commence negotiations with BNSF Railway once the project is underway. And to ensure accountability, as the project progresses, MnDOT would provide annual legislative reports in 2020 and 2021 so that we can get the information we need to take further action to ensure the project's completion. I want to be clear. The bill doesn't get Northstar here tomorrow or even next year. This is a huge project, a big undertaking, and it's important that we do it and that we do it right. It's the first step for the project, but it's a giant leap for getting commuter rail here in central Minnesota. Central Minnesotans deserve world-class transportation options to get to work, visit family, and travel safely throughout our state, and that includes Northstar. And with that, I would like to invite my testifiers up, Mayor Dave Kleiss, Chamber President Teresa Bonin, and Reverend James Alvarez.
I'm going to have you and Commissioner Clark welcome folks before the testimony starts more formally from the city. So I'm sorry I didn't introduce you here for the bill, and we really appreciate that. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and for the record, Dave Kleiss, Mayor of St. Cloud. Thank you for, I can reserve the right, I can welcome you right now while I'm here. Save time and give more opportunity for folks out here, but welcome to the city of St. Cloud, to our city hall. And you're right with your earlier observation. This was a gym. This was Central Junior High, so this was a school at one time, and a good reuse of the school. And it's been city hall for a number of years. So welcome to our community. We're very proud to host the House Transportation Committee. It's something that I feel very strongly about, having that representation. I remember. Well, I don't remember, I was really too young to remember, but in the 80s, I think the legislature back in those days actually came out and did the whole legislature came out back in those days, but committees have been here in the past, and we appreciate that. It's difficult with the schedule that folks have, especially in greater Minnesota, to be there. So thank you to your committee and being here today for this. We, as a welcome, I serve in a number of hats. I serve with an organization called the Area Planning Organization, and I know you have written material from our executive director with the priorities, and also I serve as the chair of the Metro Transit here also. So from a transportation aspect, our priority in this area, and one of our major focus has been transportation. Our priorities for the city, the APO, have always been adding additional lanes on 94. As you know, when you came down here, our goal is to have six lanes, 3 in both directions, all the way from the Twin Cities to St. Cloud. Thanks to the bonding bill in the past with the opportunity zones, that's been helpful. It's moving in that direction, and there'll be some major MnDOT construction this year, but always a priority for us, as is Northstar, as is our airport, and I would be remiss to not say, since I know this is the Transportation Committee, but local government aid also helps in that respect for our transportation. We're a city of 68,000 people, but our daytime population swells above 168,000 people. So transportation and that infrastructure is an important piece. And now, after the welcome, I want to support Representative Ogermon's bill on the Northstar. And this is something that I feel very strongly about, and it's part of that multimodal aspect of transportation. And this is something that, as a former member of the Minnesota Senate years ago, in fact, I participated in the original studies in 1997, then was a chief author of the Northstar bill. Originally, that bill to go from the Twin Cities to Rice, and if it would have been done back then, it would have been done for a lot less money, and we wouldn't be having this bill here today, and we would have had, I think, a good track record of that coming to St. Cloud in this area. I was a chief author in 2002 of the bill, and a co-author with Senator Betzel, the bill that actually passed, that actually became that first leg. And I know back during the discussion at that time, it was the federal legislation that changed and didn't get it to St. Cloud. But I'm hopeful and strong supportive. It's been one of the things we survey our residents on a regular basis. In fact, we just sent one out last week. And in the last 2 surveys, the top 4 issues, number 3, Northstar Corridor, and the last time we did number 4, we're just in the process of reading through the surveys we just sent out. Once I get through all of the snow plowing complaints, then we'll get to the other aspects of transportation, but it is something that the community has been strongly supportive of, and it fits into that transportation piece as a state. Looking at having another option, roads, highways, commuter rail, and of course also our priority is air service in our airport. So thank you for being here, and thanks for the opportunity, and hopefully this will actually get Northstar St. Cloud to something that we've been wanting for a long time.
Thank you, and just before you sit down, I wanted to also acknowledge that Representative Driscoll has legislation to bring the Northstar up to Camp Ripley, so you reminded us that, some of the original proposals did have this going a bit further to the north, and so I really appreciate the fact that we have such strong bipartisan support for this line up here, as Representative Wolgamott mentioned, so thank you, Representative Driscoll. Does anyone have any questions for the mayor from the committee? Yes, President Hyman.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Mayor. Just had a question about what were the top 2 issues? You said Northstar was the 3rd issue for St. Cloud?
Oh, our transportation, roads and highways, our top road project for St. Cloud, and which has been always on our APOs, is 94. Northstar has been our area planning organization, which is our regional planning effort for the area. Northstar has been part of that, and then our airport, the St. Cloud Regional Airport, and that's been a collaborative effort, not only, and all of these have been priorities, and you'll hear from Teresa Bowen and the business community. We just did an airport study, which again, thank the legislature for some dollars to study our airport, and thanks the leadership of the business community, the GSDC and the Chamber and other folks that have been supportive of that. So air, highways and roads in Northstar. So it's a multimodal approach. And transit, I should say, since my Metro bus director is here too, right? And transit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mayor.
And Mayor, thank you just again, personally, you've been such a champion not only of this region, but of transportation and multimodal approach, and it's very much appreciated, so thank you so much. We have a couple more testifiers.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to introduce the president of the St. Cloud Area Chamber of Commerce, Teresa Bowen.
Thank you, Representative Wolgamott, Chair Hornstein, and members of the committee. Welcome to St. Cloud. I ordered the weather personally for you. My name is Teresa Bowen. I'm president of the St. Cloud Area Chamber of Commerce. We're a business association of about 1,000 businesses of all sizes. About 80% of our members have 20 or fewer employees. So we do represent small business. Our board has supported Northstar since the beginning, since what Mayor Kleiss expressed in the 80s. The St. Cloud Area Chamber of Commerce is on record with that support and on record for the expansion of Northstar. We would welcome the next phase and encourage you to finish what's been started before we move on to other commuter rail projects across the state, as I know lots of other areas would like to have the opportunity to move people through commuter rail as well. I think it's important that we start what we finish, and that we move ahead with the project as quickly as we can with the studies that we need. Our employers also show a lot of support for this. One area that I would hope the study would undertake is on schedules. We would like the opportunity to bring people into St. Cloud and our area to work, as we're experiencing the same workforce issues as all across the state and the nation. So we want a commute in as well as a commute out, so we aren't just sending our workforce into the Twin Cities. That is very important, and the other thing that is stressed is dedication of resources, and again, watching that subsidy that's required for running the rail. Our students have expressed a desire for the rail. I know that my daughter and many of her friends that went to the U of M, even though we have an excellent SCSU and tech college here in our area, as well as many private colleges, they want the opportunity to be able to take the train into those schools as well. We also are seeking lane expansion on I-94, and I think that the Northstar complements this a great deal. We know from studies that 94 corridor between Fargo and the Twin Cities is one of the busiest corridors in the entire nation. So by putting people on the train to move them back and forth, we loosen that congestion that we're experiencing from leisure drivers, hopefully, and also complementing ridership in both areas. So in closing, I would just say we are really anxious to move ahead with the study, and your consideration of Representative Wolgamott's bill would be really appreciated. Thank you for coming to St. Cloud.
And thank you so much, Ms. Moden. Again, like Mayor Kleiss, you've been a stalwart. You've been down in St. Paul many, many times advocating for this region and transportation. Very much appreciate it. It's good to see you up here now. So we've one final testifier. Did you want to introduce him?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would like to introduce Reverend James Alberts, faith community leader and longtime advocate for this project.
Welcome to the committee, Mr. Alberts. Please state your name to the record.
Thank you. My name is Pastor James Alberts of Higher Ground Church of God in Christ here in St. Cloud, Minnesota. I want to thank the committee for coming to St. Cloud, and thank you, Representative Hornstein, Chairman, for giving us an opportunity to be able to express our support for something that we've been working extremely hard for over the years. 110,000 cars a day is what you see going between St. Cloud and the Twin Cities. 800,000 or nearly 800,000 riders on the Northstar Lake between Big Lake and the Twin Cities. That's up a few percentage points from last year, and it's up over its adjusted amount, and we still haven't gotten the Northstar to come to St. Cloud. Those numbers will only go north of where they are right now if we're able to contribute to this. I am a pastor, I am a software engineer, but of all of the things that I am, I'm a resident of this area. And what I can tell you is that in this area, of the things that are easy to do, my father would tell me that it's important for us to do the easy things because the hard things aren't going anywhere. And so what better way for us to be able to accomplish a thing than to complete what we said we were going to do in the beginning. I'm here as a faith expert, and I would love to not have to be before you again, because faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And I would like to get to the place where we can see the train so you don't need a faith expert. I've been working on this situation with the train for over a decade, and I have gone down to the Twin Cities. I've ridden a bus to get on a train, to get on another train in order to get before you, in order to talk to you about this. I have talked to the commissioners of transportation, I've talked to the state level, I have talked to the local level, I have talked to people here in this area of the surrounding counties, and of all of the people that I've talked to, there is very few people that I have talked to who have any doubt at all in their mind that this is going to happen. It has only been a question of when. And all of the annals of history that we read, of all the information that you have put together as a committee, You can pull down the information, you can go on the internet, you can see the really almost 30 years that we have been working on this commuter rail, trying to come up to this area, and you can see where we've gone up and where we've gone down, where there have been legislation and bills put in place where we are not going to spend any money to do this, only for that to be pulled back and put back into place so that we can spend on it. We've heard different numbers being thrown about. And in the last case, when I was down in the Twin Cities and I was having a conversation, there was this concern about a rail line that only had a single lane of track that rested between Big Lake and Becker. And I was told at that point in time, Pastor Alberts is going to take an act of God in order for that rail to be put down. And I looked at the chief of staff at that time and I told him, I said, well, you let me worry about the act of God. If I handle that, will you handle the rest? The day after I met with him, it was reported by Burlington that they were going to invest $350 million in the state of Minnesota. And one of the investments that they were going to put in place was to make that connection 11 miles between Becker and Big Lake. And that's been done. And so now we have 2 lanes of track that go from St. Cloud all the way down to the Twin Cities. And all of those impediments that we have done over time and time again have been removed. And so now we rest at a very important time. Courage. We need the courage to be able to finish what we say we're going to do. Not just for one person or for 10 people, but for over 100,000 people, and for the future of what this area can be. I believe that if we look at the statistics and we look at the information, there are many benefits that we can see through Anoka. I think we have a representative there. We can see through all the places where the train has stopped, the benefits that have happened at each one of the places where that train has stopped, and we can look and see where we are connecting people to lives, to jobs, to success, to opportunities. We have 5 educational institutions here. We have people who need jobs, want jobs, but what good is a job if you can't get there? What good is an opportunity to be able to live above the poverty rate if you can't get to the job that will pay you the wage that you are very likely to earn if you can get there? So I'm asking for the committee to support this bill. I am in support of it myself, and I represent a whole lot of folk that also support it. So I want to thank you again for your time, Representative, and thank you for the committee for coming up here. We're here to make sure that faith gets completed, and we're here to make sure that North Star comes to St. Cloud. Thank you for your time.
Asking the committee if they had any questions for Ms. Bonin. So if you have, anyone has questions for either Ms. Bonin or Pastor Alberts, now would be the opportunity to ask them. Okay, thank you. Do you have any closing comments, Representative Waldman?
And I wanted to make sure I thank this young man right here for the work that he's doing. Representative Vogelman is really pushing this hard. So thank you for your grace.
Thank you, Pastor. The last word, Representative? Absolutely. Questions for the author?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for bringing this important issue forward. A couple of quick questions. One, we know that the current Northstar line is very heavily subsidized.
What?
Okay.
Well,
All right.
Representative Torkelson can continue his question.
How do you anticipate that picture looking should this line go forward?
Mr. Chair, Representative Torkelson, taking a look at those numbers and making sure that we're doing this project in the most cost-effective and efficient manner is a part of what that $850,000 general fund appropriation would go to. The time for kicking the can down the tracks is over. The time for investment is now, and we'll be getting information from that to make sure that we're doing this in the most cost-effective and efficient manner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Representative, you believe that you'll be able to drive that subsidy down?
I believe that we'll take a look at the information that's given to us. That's why we have that $850,000 appropriation, so that we can take that information and put it to good use and come together as legislators from both sides in committee and with input from the public and make sure that we're able to do it in the most cost-effective manner.
Chair, another challenge with any commuter rail line or any rail line, passenger rail line, is trying to determine if it's really going to be an effective commuter line or if it's going to have a lot of stops. We know that folks along the line like to have a stop in their community, but the more stops you have, the slower the train is.
Right.
How do you intend to address that particular issue, Representative Wolgamott?
Representative Wolgamott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Representative Torkelson, we need that updated information. There really hasn't been much work done to get information for about the past 10 years. And so we're going to take a look at stops and train numbers and ridership numbers. And again, we're not putting the cart ahead of the horse here. We're doing the work to make sure we have the information so that we can have those details. This isn't the end-all be-all of finishing Northstar and finishing the project. This is the initial steps that we have to take to get the project going. And part of that is getting the information so that we have not numbers from years past, but the most up-to-date numbers so that we can accurately answer your questions.
Just one final question, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. Finally, it appears from what I've read about your bill that you intend to go ahead with this work before negotiating with the Class 1 railroad, in this case Burlington Northern. This project cannot be successful without Burlington Northern's cooperation and negotiations being completed with the Class 1 railroad. Why are you leaving that till after you've spent a significant amount of money?
Mr. Chair, Representative Torkelson, again, that's what that general fund appropriation is, so that we can get the information that we need, so that we can go so the MnDOT can go into negotiations with BNSF. And again, we don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse here. We need to have that information so that we can, in good faith and with good knowledge, commence those negotiations.
Representative Bernardi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank Representative Wolgamott for bringing this forward. I was at the beginning, an author of the first Northstar bill, and wanted to get it to St. Cloud. I live on the line in Ferd Lake, and we want to come visit St. Cloud, and we hope our St. Cloud folks want to come visit us too. But I just really appreciate the bipartisan support you've gotten behind this. I haven't seen that before, and a real solution to move this forward. And for me, I appreciate that because the proposals previous to you were taking money from our stops and limiting service, and we want this to be robust, and we want it to be strong, and I thank you for your leadership in coming up with solutions and bringing bipartisan support to make that happen. So I'm proud to be a co-author on this bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Representative Bernardi. I'm very proud that this legislation does have that bipartisan approach. And we don't want to be pitting communities against each other. We want, as Minnesotans, to have a strong, robust transportation system, and that's one of the goals that this bill hopes to achieve.
Thank you, Representative Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to just make a comment about a bill that's not here today, and that is the bill that I am chief author, to look at a feasibility study. In the way of full disclosure, I'm not 100% sure at this point in my life if I support the idea of bringing Northstar from Big Lake to St. Cloud. What I've been accused of in my lifetime has probably been a person who thinks out several intersections and processes down the road. And the reason that I wanted to take a more global look at this is, number one, between Big Lake and Camp Ripley, there are 9 communities. 5 to 6 of those communities have all expressed an interest and a desire to have a rail stop in their community. That's just not practical and feasible to be able to make this a successful mode of transportation. As Representative Wolgamott pointed out, there's a lot of information that we should look to gather to learn about this. And my fear is that if we bring the train from Big Lake to St. Cloud, all of having looked at the additional consequences up the line or down the line, however you want to look at it, that we're going to be missing some opportunities to be able to find out the feasibility of this. Right now we have the Northstar link that takes people from St. Cloud to Big Lake. I don't know, Representative Wolgamott, if your bill contemplates future use of that to try to be able to provide ridership going to these other communities. I would have just hoped that we'd have had a more robust conversation so we can make an informed decision, because I fear that once that we get to St. Cloud, this doesn't go away as an issue, and then legislators and local elected officials are going to have to try to pick who the winners and losers would be along those 6 communities that have expressed an interest, St. Cloud being one of them, down to 4 or 5. And so I want to be on the record with that, because and the co-authors who are up and down that line from Camp Ripley to Big Lake are the same ilk that I am on this. They want to know more information. No one has said they were for or against it at this point. And again, I have always been somewhat skeptical without having additional information. So I wanted to, before we got too far down the line, go with that information. The chair and I have had some conversations about why that's not going to happen this year. But I'm fine with that. But I wanted to at least have a bigger conversation for folks on that, and to be able to publicly express my thoughts and views as to why we would do that. I'm a data-driven decision maker and have been all of my life on it, and I feel that we're going to be short some data to make a more comprehensive decision. So I just wanted to share that and give people an understanding of where I'm coming from on the issue today. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Wolgamott.
Thank you very much, Representative Driscoll.
Mr. Chair?
Representative Wolgamott.
Representative Driscoll, I want to commend you for your willingness to take a look at the Northstar project and your efforts to bring it to central Minnesota. I think that's spectacular, and I'm really proud of the bipartisan group of folks that we have who are willing to take a look at Northstar. I did take a look at what that would mean to study other spots. I'd love for Northstar to go to Sartell. I'd love for it to go up to Fort Ripley. I'd love for it to go to Fargo. I'd love for it to go to Winnipeg. I mean, I would love for that. But in my conversations with rail experts, with MnDOT, adding money for further study and further looking at things, this bill has a very strong investment in getting data. It has a significant appropriation from the general fund so that we get data, that we get information, that we know full well what we're getting into before we commence our negotiations and before we have further state investment. And again, what I know is that the time for kicking the can down the tracks is over, and the time for investment and making real capital investments and improvements to getting this project started is now. So I'm committed to doing what I can to make sure that the Northstar commuter rail gets to our community, that it gets to central Minnesota here in St. Cloud in as effective and an efficient manner as possible. And from there, once we get that going, once we get those ridership numbers where they need to be, I think that's going to benefit all of our areas. And you're right, we have to look at the link bus. We can look at further stops up and down there. That's why we have a significant portion of general fund money going to getting that data.
Representative Driscoll, and then we'll get to Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Wolgamott, again, as I said, I'm not for or against it at this point. I'm leaning against it because I just think we need to have that data to show people in central Minnesota what the cost is going to be, what local investment might be. It's really easy for communities to come in and say, I'd like to have a stop. And I think that St. Cloud and the area is going to be experiencing an awful lot of, I didn't know about that, or didn't think about that. And going back to the question that Representative Torkelson talked about, we don't even have a negotiation in place to be able to use the Class 1 line at this point. I'm hoping that the study will yield us more information to help my concerns so that I can make an informed decision. But again, I would like to see it more of a global approach, because all we're going to do is have that next run of communities asking for it. And I don't know that taking precious taxpayer dollars and doing another study at some point in the future when we can accomplish it now would be, so people know the cost. We can start having those conversations, which may be from anywhere from no, it's not feasible, to partially feasible, to fully feasible. We don't have that information. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say quickly, Representative Driscoll, I welcome further comment. We won't take up any more time here today, but I'm really excited for the chance to work with you and with our other area legislators to achieving our ultimate goal. We all on Northstar up here, and want to take efforts to look at that. And I'm really excited to get to work with you and our other legislators in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We're going to have one more question or comment on this bill from Representative Elkins, and we'll get to Representative Driscoll's bills. We'll have some opening comments from Commissioner Clark, and then we'll hear from all of you. Yes. Oh, okay. Let's have Representative Elkins, then Representative Runbeck, and then we do really have to move on. Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Torkelson raised a point that has long been a sore spot with me. You would think that when you're trying to evaluate a project like this thing, the first thing you would do is sit down with the Class 1 railroad, BNSF in this case, and negotiate with them about what's going to take to for them to grant us the use of their right of way to do this project. But federal regulations prohibit us from actually negotiating with a railroad until all of the environmental work has been completed, at which point the railroad is in the driver's seat in terms of dictating what the pound of flesh they're going to exact in order to actually execute the project. So this might be something we want to ask our congressman to help us with, because it really does it is kind of a bass backwards. You would think you would want to negotiate with the railroad first, and under federal regulations right now, it has to be last.
Representative Runbeck for our last committee question or comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Wolgamott, you've got assessment and analysis are two of the things we're paying for with the initial grant that we're proposing. I guess what I'm curious about, what those words mean, and will this involve a full-blown marketing study to know, really anticipate correctly what the ridership will be and what the use will be. I can point to you, I have it in my folder, a flyer from 15 years ago that said there'd be 10,000 riders a day on Northstar. So, it was way off. It was a lot of hopes and wishes and dreams, but it isn't anywhere near close to being actual. So, will there be a full-blown marketing study that's coming out of this?
Mr. Chair, Representative Runbeck, to give you fully accurate details on what exactly that money is going to go towards, I'd like to ask our representative from MnDOT to come here and give more insight on that process.
Mr. Levine, welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Eric Redeeman with MnDOT Government Affairs. And the short answer to the question is yes. The study would look at ridership numbers. We have some ridership numbers from several years ago that need to be updated. And one of the things that we would look at is the current ridership on Northstar, the current bus that goes from St. Cloud to Big Lake, and development patterns and things that have changed in the last several years. But if you have more questions about the other activities that would be done with this funding, I can answer those. But to answer your question, yes, there's a very extensive analysis that would occur on ridership projections.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you very much. I don't know if you have any final, you kind of made some summary comments already, and so just leave me with
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to thank you, and I'd like to thank the committee members here for coming to St. Cloud to hear directly from our leaders and from our community members how important this project is. At a bill hearing, it's important to get in the details and to crunch the numbers and all that. That's very important. We owe that to the taxpayers. But it's also important to hear directly from the people of this community how this project is going to impact their life, and how further delay is really going to have a negative consequence for them. So I want to thank everyone who showed up today to make their voice heard, to share their story about how this project is going to make your life better. And members, I want to ask you, and I want to ask our friends in the Senate and our friends in the governor's office to listen to these stories that we're going to hear today. And I urge you to take what you've learned and pass this bill, House File 1179. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members.
Thank you, Representative Wolgamott. And before Representative Driscoll comes up for, thank you. With that, we're going to lay over